everybody, you are very welcome to tonight's webinar on how to prevent injury when returning to exercise or gym. My name is Derek Stenson. I am a physiotherapist and clinic owner at Midlands Physio and Back Pain Clinic in Moat, County Westmeath. And I'm delighted to bring this webinar to tonight because every year, coming up towards the end of January, I always see a number of people coming into me who have injured themselves from going back to training after the indulgence of Christmas, setting New Year's resolution, to come back with all this enthusiasm. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to do this year. I'm going to lose weight, whatever it is. And they pick up an injury that could be prevented. And what happens is that break in training can then break the good habits that they're trying to build up. And unfortunately, they stop their routine of going to the gym, they stop their routine of losing weight, whatever that may be. And the cycle returns where a whole year goes, and the same thing happens next year. So what I want to do is I want to give you some practical tips. This can get quite complicated in the professional sporting scenario. There is more science to it. I want to take all that science and break it down into easy to understand way. And a lot of it, you'll be watching this and listening to this and go, do you know what, that makes sense. I knew that already, but it's just reminders. And hopefully you'll go away with this you will go away with this at the end. We'll run through 7 tips, and hopefully you'll just take a couple of things from it to bring into your exercise routine or your training routine. Or if you haven't started yet and you're thinking of starting soon, then you'll have that in the back of your mind so that you can continue to exercise without picking up injury. So we'll go on to the next slide. And what we'll cover in this webinar, we're going to go through some of the common errors that I see and that are in the literature that can lead to non-contact related injuries. So non-contact, you're obviously not playing football, you're not in the pitch, so no one has come in to tackle you. You are training by yourself and you've picked up an injury without any form of contact. That's what that means. We'll go through the common reasons why they can happen. And then, as I said, I want you to leave this with some practical tips that you can implement. So 7 tips to help prevent injury. So 3 big reasons people suffer injury. So the most common one is training loads. And training load, we're going to discuss that. That also includes a spike in training loads. Second one is technique, which is very important, especially if you're going back to the gym, if you're lifting weights, if you haven't really done that before, and you're going back on, I'm going to lift this bar over my head, and you haven't been trained the right technique, then you are putting yourself at risk for picking up an injury. And then previous injuries is huge. So if you've had a previous injury, you are more likely at risk to get re-injured again unless you have properly rehabbed that injury. And coming from a physiotherapist point of view, this is what I see a whole lot. Sorry, I see a lot. A whole lot doesn't really make sense, but I see this a lot. So training loads, we got to be aware of the terrible twos. We've all heard that phrase when it comes to kids, but with training, actually that's my own phrase, but with training, we got to be aware of the terrible twos, which is too much enthusiasm, too much training, and too much too soon, you could say. So hopefully they all make sense. Too much enthusiasm after the Christmas break. The 1st of January is the day where I'm going to go back and I'm going to start this and I'm going to start this. And that leads to too much training. So you're trying to get everything done in the first 2 weeks, and we're going to burn off all that sitting around over the Christmas and all that extra Christmas cake and turkey. And then too much too soon. You're doing an awful lot too soon. Maybe December is a very busy month for people. People may not get to exercise as much. And all of a sudden you're going back to doing lots of exercise in a very short space of time. And that all increases your risk for picking up an injury. So basically you could term it as a spike in training loads. And that's what this slide says. So the goal is to prevent big spikes in training, in activity. So your body likes it when there is a consistent level of training. If you are training at a reasonably steady and medium to high level of training, then you're putting your body in a really good shape to prevent injury. So I guess you could say the fitter you are, the less likely the chance is that you'll pick up an injury. If you're training at a very low level of exercise, so let's say you're doing it maybe once, twice a week. The next week it may be once a week. The next week it may be twice. And it's not at a very great intensity. It's very lackadaisy. Then that also puts you at a risk of picking up an injury. So the goal is to prevent spikes in activity. As I said, you want to maintain a steady level of fitness, awareness. So you need to be aware of the exercise duration. So not only the duration, but also the intensity. So if you're going out for, let's say you're getting back to running and you're saying, I'm going to run 3 times a week to start off. I'm not going to do a huge distance, maybe 3K, 4K, but you're running at a quick speed for all of those runs. That actually puts you at a higher risk of picking up an injury. And I love to run. I've been running for many years, but I've done a couple of marathons in the past, and I was not aware of this until I actually picked up an injury myself. So all of my runs used to be at a fairly high pace, because that's what I love about running. You just throw on a pair of runners and you're gone, and it's quite time efficient. You can get a good run in 30 minutes, but not until I realized that you have to mix it up. So some of the runs need to be quick, some of the runs need to be slow, and that reduces your chance of picking up an injury. So you got to be aware of the exercise duration and also the intensity. You could mark the intensity from a 1 to 10. 10 is extremely intense. You're absolutely flat out. You can't even talk to someone because you've exercised so hard. So that'd be like a circuit class sometimes, whereas 1 is obviously very light. So 1, 2, 3, 4, lighter. Up near the higher end, 7, 8, 9, 10 are more intense. And then the right level of training we've talked about, too little or too much can increase your injury risk. Just a little slide here on walking versus running. It just was quite interesting. I picked this up from a book I'm reading at the moment. So we know that walking is just, whoops, I keep doing that. Walking is a simple process in which we hit the ground, one foot, the other leg carries through. But this study was done on a man. I'm afraid I don't have the stats for a woman, but a 68 kg man. If a 68 kg man was to walk 1 mile, which is 1.6 kilometers, his feet would hit the ground 115 times per minute. Impact forces would be 110% of his body weight, and a force of 9.5 tons or 8.6 tons in brackets. I'm actually not sure why they have that in brackets. I couldn't figure that out. Would be applied to his feet every 60 seconds. So 9.5 tons over the course of a minute, 60 seconds, would be applied to his feet, which is quite a bit. Now, here's the thing. If the same man was to run 1 mile, his feet would hit the ground a lot more, 175 times per minute, but the impact forces would increase 3 to 5 times his body weight, and his feet would have to absorb a force of excess of 52 tons of impact force every minute. So there is a huge difference between running and walking. And walking is, while you won't get the same cardio at walking, it's actually a much safer form of exercise. And you do hear some people say running on the road, I can't do that. For some people, look, you do have to build up to running. And if you have not run much before, and then you're setting this new year goal or this fitness goal for the year, that I'm going to run 3-4 times a week, it is a lot of stress on the body. So just be aware of that. The ground reaction forces between running and walking are huge. 3 to 5 times his body weight for running, 110% of his body weight for walking. So just be aware of that. If you're starting off running, you've got to build up slowly. You will have to do a little bit of strengthening if you haven't done much before. And there is way more force that needs to be tolerated from the foot up to the ankle, up to the knee, up to the hip, and we want them working efficiently together. And that's what I do a lot in my clinic, really focus on all the muscles around, the big muscles around the big joints, working together in an efficient way. Acute versus chronic ratio. This is getting into a little bit of the sciencey type of thing, but I just want to go through it. This is more in professional sport. But basically, your acute ratio is what you've done that week. Your chronic ratio, or sorry, should I say the acute ratio is what you've done in the last week. The chronic ratio is what you've done over the last 4 weeks. You do not want your acute ratio to be greater than your chronic ratio. So when that happens, there is a spike in training load. So let's say I ran, because running sometimes is an easy way to put it because you can measure the mileage. Let's say I ran 20 miles last week, but over the last 4 weeks, I've ran an average of 15 miles. So that's a little bit of a spike. I'm doing 5 extra miles in the last week compared to the last month and putting myself at a bit of a risk for picking up an injury. So you can see, sorry, I just have to move to something on my screen. So to measure that, we get the current week's training divided by the average of the last 4 weeks. You can include duration and intensity, like I said, as well. So you can include the time. If you're just measuring for time, let's say you're in the gym and you're measuring, I did a total of 2 hours in the gym last week. You can measure the intensity level as well. So after each session, just write down, was it an intensity of 7? Was it at an intensity of 9? You could add that up. And then what we're looking for, you'll get a little ratio or percentage, and the sweet spot is between 0.8 and 1.3. So if it comes out at 1.5, that's a high risk. So your acute ratio is higher than your chronic. And on the flip side of that, if you're lower than that, it means you're training at a lower level. So it's a lower consistency, and you're not really building robustness in your body. You're not building that resilience in your body because your training isn't really stressing you. So if you do have a day where you're doing more, then that's where you put yourself at risk of injury. Now, there's the old way of doing it as well. For a lot of runners, you'll hear them say this, that you don't want to increase your weekly training load by 10%, more than 10% the previous week. So if you did 50 miles last week, then you don't want to do more than 55 miles this week. So hopefully that all makes sense. So a couple of things here. We want to know your baseline. So when you're starting off, you want to know where you're at. So what's your fitness level at? What have you done over the last month? What have you done over the last 2 months? Where do you want to get to? What's your goal? It's always good to have a goal in mind, so you can work towards it. And then the big thing is, how can you get there safely? Your current lifestyle is also a big one. So hopefully you're not like this guy in the picture who is flat out, a cup of coffee in his hand, is still not doing the job. So what is your current lifestyle like? How much extra load can you handle? Because exercise is a form of stress in the body. So your body does need stress, but it does need the other side of that. So your stress is your fight or flight. The opposite of that is rest and digest. So we want a healthy balance between both of those. And it's very healthy to go into a state of fight or flight. But what is not unhealthy is when you chronically stay in that state. So when you don't get a chance to come back out of that, and that's where all these stress-related problems come, high blood pressure, but also injury as well. So what is your current lifestyle like? Are you really, really busy at work? Have you an awful lot of study going on? Are you doing a lot of activities at the moment? Are you involved in 5 different committees? Are you here, there, everywhere, dropping the kids to school? Are you sitting in the car watching them, or to train? Are you sitting in the car watching them for 2 hours at a time? Do you get out feeling stiff? So all of these different things are adding the stress in the body. How much more can you actually take on? And if you're really, really busy, you may have to just either cut off a few things if you're able to, or just start off with the training at a lower rate. And once you have a bit more time, or once your fitness levels increase, then you can gradually start to increase as well. So it's sort of common sense, but sometimes people don't think of that as much. R&R is rest and relaxation. This is both physical and mental. So it's taking the time off exercise to relax the body. This is where stretching can be really useful. So you don't really have to stretch. You can if you want, for sure, but you don't have to religiously stretch after exercise every time. Okay, so that can be done later on. And in fact, that's what I do a lot as well. You could do your exercise, but I always have a period during the day, whether it's morning time, whether it's evening, where I do a little bit of stretching and a little bit of relaxation and a little bit of calm breathing as well. And that's where yoga is so beneficial for people, because it's really slow breathing, really slow movements. It's really relaxing the mind as you're just nudging into the stretch and nudging into the movement a little bit more every time. Relaxed breathing, very, very important. When you're in fight or flight, your breath is going to be more up through the upper chest. It's going to be more like this. That when you breathe like that, your body associates that with fight or flight. So it's going to be sending the cortisol, the adrenaline around your body. Your body's going to be under that state of tension, and that's not good for it all the time. So when we calm the breathing down, and when it's nice and relaxed in through the nose, your body associates that with rest and digest, and everything starts to calm down. So when you go to bed at night, which is a big one, you want to be breathing in a nice relaxed way through the nose, ideally, so that your body signifies that with rest and digest, and you get the proper recovery that you need at nighttime. Hydration and nutrition, we all know about that. There's so much information about that, that is also an important part. If you're training loads but you're eating crap, you're drinking loads of alcohol, look at its common sense. Good quality sleep, of course, and then restoring your body to a restful state. That's the aim of the R&R. And then graded exposure. So graded exposure just means gradually exposing your body to load. That's what I do with patients in the clinic when they're recovering from injury, get them to a level where they can do this, this, and this to practice that. Once they can achieve that, then we stress it a bit more, make it more challenging for them. Because if you don't do that, your body won't react, your body won't respond, and your body won't get to the level of resilience that it needs to. So this is the same with the return to training, whether you're in the gym, whether you're out at a circuit class or something like that. If you go hell for leather at the start and you keep it like that, it's too big of a step. Body doesn't like that. It doesn't like big spikes in training load. So we got to go step 1, step 2, and step 3. Just gradually increase the load every week. Now, number 2 element is technique. So technique is really important, especially when you are doing something new. So if you are taking up a new activity, I'm also a tennis coach. I haven't taught tennis as much in the last few years, but I used to teach an awful lot in my 20s and my 30s. And I saw people coming in and taking up tennis, and unfortunately, they wouldn't get the correct technique and they'd often pick up an injury. So it's the same with other sports as well, or other exercises. If you're going to a circuit class, of course, the thing about a circuit class, they can be fantastic and they're really, really good fun. But if the instructor doesn't get enough time to focus on you, if the class is quite big, if it's very, very quick, you're competing with other people, you may not be doing the exercise with the right technique, and there's a danger that you pick up an injury. This is really important when there's weight involved. So it's always good just to learn it with body weight first, and then once you have the technique right, then you can start adding in the weights after that. A good technique helps to manage reactions and load. You can see the lunge here on the left. Ideally, I'd like that knee a little bit more in front on that lady on the left. But when she's pushing back, she wants to push back through the laces part of the foot, and that gets all the muscles tolerating load better. And it also takes pressure off the back knee at the rear foot or the rear leg. Running, we spoke about as well. You need good ground reaction forces from the ankle up to the knee, up to the hip, and then squat as well. You can see he's sitting nicely back into that squat. Weight is through the ankles, or weight is through the heels. So once the knees are forward and the weight is back, the knees are nice and happy. And then number 3, previous injuries. This is my bread and butter because I see an awful lot of it in the clinic. Sorry, just get a drink of water. So ideally, we want joints and muscles coordinate effectively with each other. If you've had a previous injury before, it doesn't matter if it's a previous injury to a particular joint, such as the knee or the ankle, and you're doing a lot of running, then that is something that you really want to have rehab properly. But if it's another part of the body, so let's say you can have an ankle injury on the left side and you can pick up a hamstring injury on the right. So it doesn't have to be on the same side. Very often, if one area is not doing the work it's meant to do, somewhere else is compensating and somewhere else is taking up the load, because your body doesn't care what way it has to get the job done. If you're going out for a run, your brain is not going, oh, I'm going to use this muscle like this and this muscle like this and this muscle like this. It's just getting you to run from A to B. And if one area is not working well enough, something else has to compensate and work harder. And that area may not be best designed to do that job. So that's where that gets overloaded. That's when that gets stiff. That's when that gets tight. And that's when that can get injured. Or that's where you can get pain. And pain is your body's way of saying, I'm not happy here. Something's going on that is going to either lead to injury or is injured, and that's its way of telling you that. So your body wants to feel safe and balanced, and once it feels safe and balanced, then it's happy. So your brain's job is to protect you, and it's constantly monitoring all these signals coming up from the body to make you feel safe and balanced. I suppose it's going to give you if it doesn't feel safe and balanced, it gives you the reaction, as I said, of stiffness and pain. Sorry, I got tongue-tied there. I couldn't think of what I wanted to say. When this balance is altered due to previous injury, previous stress, it can result in overload, which results in pain, sickness, or injury over time. So we need to be able to tolerate shock and load efficiently. So these are little stick mans. I do draw these for my clinic, for my patients in the clinic all the time. So you can see on the left here, it's just a little stick man diagram of a foot hitting the floor when it's running. So ideally, when the foot hits the floor, you want the muscles from the lower leg below the knee absorbing 25% of the pressure. That then goes up into the hamstrings at the back. It also travels up into the quads at the front, and then that transfers up into the glutes at the top, and that's what propels you forward. So we want them working nice and efficiently. And you can see on the right there, the stick man or stick lady is bending down to pick something up. Again, everything's doing 25. All the major parts of the body are doing 25%, give or take. This is just rough figures just to help you understand it. But if everything adds up to 100, it's nice and efficient. What can happen is if this is altered, so on the left here, the muscles at the back of the leg are not contributing are not contributing properly when the foot is hitting the floor. So let's say there was an old ankle injury, so the muscles around the calf and the ankle aren't contributing properly because your body's not happy putting the weight through it still. So they're doing 5% of the work. That means the hamstring's not going to be working well with the calf. That's doing 5%. The glute is doing 5%. What happens? The quads have to take up the load. They have to work harder because the other areas are not doing their job right. So the quad is doing 85%. Quads pass down over the knee joint, and that can lead to tightness around the knee, stiffness in the quads, which can lead to knee problems or quad problems at the front. And then you can see the stick man on the right. This person has had a lower body injury, or sorry, an upper body injury before. They say, let's say they've had a wrist, an elbow, or a shoulder injury. That area of the body was not rehabbed properly. There's still a little bit of an inefficiency there. So it's not happy lifting up the weight. It's not contributing the 25% to the work. It's only doing 5%. The mid back is doing 20. That means the low back has to do 50% and the lower body is 25. So if the low back is doing 50% all the time, it's going to get grumpy. It's going to get aggravated. It's going to send messages up to your brain going, hey, I'm doing way too much work here. Help me out. Brain responds by giving pain, stiffness, tightening up, and avoiding that movement, and that can lead to back problems. So on to the final part. So I want to leave you, and I want to keep this below 30 minutes because I know people are busy and people start to switch off after 20, 30 minutes as well, including myself all the time. So let's try and keep this short. But these are just 7 tips we'll run through. I want you to leave with these in your mind and maybe pick 3 or 4 of them that you can apply in the days and weeks ahead. So know your current fitness level is tip 1. So know where you're starting from. Is it a new exercise or have you done it before? Also, are you doing it by yourself or is it in a group or a circuit class where you might get a little bit more competitive? Your friend could be across the way. You're looking across and going, I'm going to do more than you. I'm not going to let you beat me, even though you're absolutely dying on the inside. So that's where the circuit class, you can push yourself a little bit too hard, too quick, and you can pick up an injury. And also, do you remember the acute to chronic ratio? What are you doing this week, or what have you done in the last week compared to what you've done in the last 4 weeks? If it is a lot greater, then you are putting yourself at risk of injury. Include a warm-up is number 2. So the best warm-ups to do are where you start gently and build up speed. Start with smaller movements and get bigger. So like the likes of jumping jacks, just start with the arms just going out to the side a little bit, but then gradually build them up, bring them up bigger over your head as your cardio, as your heart rate starts going. A good mix of cardio mobility, so you can stretch and you can get into positions and movements as you are getting some cardio in as well. And don't stretch core muscles. If the fiber, the tissue in muscles responds better to heat. So that's why people can often feel better after heat if they have a muscle injury or a muscle problem. That's why hot showers can feel nice in the morning for loosening up. So it's good to get a bit of cardio. It's good to get a bit of blood flowing around the body, get the heart rate up, and then do a little bit of light stretching. And number 3 is body weight first, especially if it's your first time riding the bull. So if you're going back to the gym, you haven't been in a long time, it's good just to start off with body weight exercises first. Good for warm-up. You can see these ladies here are going into a lunge position, a nice twist. They're getting a lot of upper body. They're getting a little bit of twist into the thoracics. They're getting a nice stretch through the hip flexors there as well. So they can go into that position, push straight back out. So it's good for warm-up. It allows you to increase the weight safely. So once you can do it, body weight, and you can get a lot of load through the body using body weight exercises. So push-ups, squats, lunges, like they're really, really good exercises. You can get a really, really good weight workout in just using body weight exercises. And it allows you to learn with good technique first before you add in weight, if that's what you want to do. Varied exercises, sometimes called cross training. So you get a good healthy mix of using different parts of the body. So it's not just, for example, you're not just running 5-6 days a week. You're doing maybe 4 days of running, and then you're doing maybe a little bit on the rowing machine. You're doing a little bit of swimming. You're working different areas to try and balance up the body. So if you were to just work all the muscles at the front of the body and you were to ignore the muscles at the back of the body, what's going to happen? You're going to create an imbalance. Something's going to get overloaded either at the front because it's working too hard, or something's going to get overloaded at the back because it's trying to pull you back into that position. So you want a nice healthy balance between different types of exercises. Learn good techniques. So we spoke about this already. Don't need to go into that in too much detail, but just be aware of it. Be aware of it. It's temptation to go back, as I said, into the gym, looking at people who have been doing it for 10 years, going, oh, I want to do that exercise. That looks cool. And trying to copy them. And lo and behold, you realize that it's absolutely really, really hard to do. And you think you're doing it right, but you're doing it with an inefficient technique, which is going to leave overload in the body. So it's always good to, if you haven't done it before, get a bit of guidance, personal trainer, physio, whatever it is, or someone who really knows what they're at, or look it up on YouTube, but look it up a good few times before you do it. But it's always good face to face. And then start slowly, and once you get the hang of it slowly, add in a little bit more speed, add in a little bit more weight once you get the hang of the speed. Schedule recovery days. This is the R&R. Ensure you have rest days or days of lighter training. So again, this depends on your current fitness levels. If you're starting from a low baseline, if you haven't done much over the last few months, you'll probably need to add in more rest days. If your fitness level is quite high, if you have a good baseline already, then you will have a good knowledge as well of what your body can take. And your fitness or your days off can be either lighter days, or they don't have to be as much of a gap between. Alternatively, you can alternate training different muscle groups or try different forms of exercise. So, for example, swimming could be a rest day. And then listen to your body. Okay, so you know your body best. Okay, you know how your body feels. You know, have you any niggles? Have you any pains? You know what your lifestyle is like. You know what injuries you've had before. Are you an anxious person? Do you carry a lot of stress? All of these different things. How's your diet? How are you sleeping? How do you manage stress? These are all little things to be aware of. And as I said, they all add up to stress. So it doesn't just have to be stress as the traditional form of stress that you might see someone working in an office and they've got a deadline to meet and just stress out in front of the computer. It can be all different things causes stress in the body. It's diet, sleep, movements. They all are a stress. Some of them can be healthy stresses. Some of them are not healthy stresses. But as I said, if your body goes into a stress state, so long as you can come back out of it and let it go into a rest and digest phase, and it doesn't constantly stay in that form of stress, then you are you're giving your body a chance to recover, and you are reducing the chances of picking up an injury. Some other tools that can help: heat baths, saunas, steam rooms. Yep, all heat. Your body likes heat because it helps, as I said, to sort of melt is not the right word probably, but soften, I suppose, the collagen in the muscle, which helps it to be a bit more flexible and to loosen a bit. Cold ice baths as well. These are big in professional sports. Ice baths, ice packs. Relaxation, yoga, breathing work, stretching. We've talked about that. Massage can be good as well. Deep tissue sports massage if you're training a lot. If you suffer from tight muscles, it's good to they do play a part in injury prevention. Personal trainers and physiotherapists as well. Personal trainers for the technique, physiotherapists for movement assessment, for helping you overcome rehab previous injuries and to assess your risk for injury. Oh, that's it. Any questions, please get in touch. I hope you found that helpful. As I said, I hope I haven't gone over the hour or the half hour mark. If you've any questions, these are my details here: Midlands Physio and Back Pain Clinic. Derek Stenson, as I said, is my name. My website is midlandsphysio.ie. You'll see the number there, and you can contact me at derek@midlandsphysio.ie. You'll also find me on Facebook and Instagram. And as in the coming month or so, I am going to be starting some classes in the Midlands area, in the Round the Moat area as well, that are going to be based towards sort of cardio, fitness, injury prevention. For anybody who's had a lower body injury, an upper body injury before, I'm going to have specific classes for them as well. But for the fitness and for the preventing injury point of view, if you want to start more exercise, if you want an introduction into sort of gym stuff as well, I am going to be starting classes that's going to be focused on cardio, but also technique and doing things safely. So keep an eye out on Facebook and Instagram for details on those. So thanks a million for listening. Hope you found this helpful and informative, and hopefully I haven't taken up too much of your evening. And as I said, if you have any questions, please do get in touch and have a lovely evening.